Good morning, viewers. My name is Ferdy Venter, and today we are going to have a look at the memorandum of the 2015 supplementary paper that was written in February, March. Today the discussion will be on paper 1, and we really want to motivate teachers to make sure that learners get hold of a copy or copies of this paper as well as the memorandum, but also use it during your extra classes and during your revision sessions, as for learners to see the proper way in answering these papers that will be exactly similar in format and in mark allocation, etc., at the end of the year, as well as in June and in the September trial exams, of course. So let's immediately go to the paper 1 of the February-March supplementary paper. That was the instructions to learners, and we're not going to spend time this morning on those instructions. It is also a good ploy to make sure that learners know exactly what to do during answering these papers. So make sure that learners don't ignore this first instruction part and information given. Let us immediately go to the questions. As in the past, and as will be the case the rest of the year, the life sciences papers start with section A, and of course the first part will be a multiple choice set of questions. What is important for learners to know, we always emphasize that the way to deal with this multiple choice questions should be to eliminate those that they can immediately identify as totally incorrect, so to bring them to maybe 1 at the end or maybe 2 that they should choose from. So when we look at this, what I'm going to do this today is to first of all discuss the answers, come to an answer and conclusion, and then afterwards I will show the memorandum to teachers. Just before I start, teachers can look for this paper. It should probably be on the internet, on the education website, the national website, maybe the portal to Tong. But if teachers do not have this paper and the memorandum, please contact your subject advisor in your district, as for him or her to provide you with these papers and memoranda. First question, 1.1.1. A light stimulus is converted into a nerve impulse in the, and then the options are iris, retina, optic nerve, or choroid. Of course, we can immediately identify the correct answer there as to be the retina, because all the other parts of the eye are not involved in the conversion of nerve impulses towards the brain. So the correct answer in this case is then B, the retina. They start this paper with quite an easy question as to put learners at ease and to give them courage, hopefully for the rest of the paper. 1.1.2, which plant hormone promotes seed dormancy? Very importantly, that teachers should look at the examination guidelines received from National when we started with CAPS curriculum beginning of 2014, to make sure that teachers do not teach extra or unnecessary content. In this case, we are aware of the fact that gibberellins, auxins, and abscisic acid are the only hormones, plant hormones, that the learners should learn. Of course, teachers can go beyond. Teachers can explain the others and mention interesting phenomena, but for examination purposes, the ones A, B, and C are the ones needed. The answer, of course, of this one should be C. C dormancy, controlled by abscisic acid. 1.1.3. The type of reproduction in which young develop from the eggs that are kept in the mother's body but do not receive nutrition from the mother. choices: vivipary, ovipary, ovovipary, or altricial. Immediately, learners can eliminate number D, altricial, because he does not play a role in this instruction or question given. So the choice should be between A, B, and C. And because of the fact that this young has been developed inside the mother's body, but not dependent on nutrition or receiving nutrition from the mother, meaning, as a matter of fact, the little one develops into an embryo inside the mother's body, but are born alive. That brings us to the answer number C, ovovipary, because the other two, live-born vivipary, fed by the mother throughout the gestation period, and ovipary, animals that's laying eggs, and the young are fed from nutritional substances from the egg, the developing egg. 1.1.4, which part of the human brain controls balance and equilibrium? Of course, the answer there is B, the cerebellum. The others are not involved with that particular function. 1.1.5, DNA replication occurs during which phase? And we know that replication occurs in between two meiotic processes, two meiotic divisions. In other words, the answer 1.1.5 is B, interphase. As a matter of fact, the interphase is a phase in between meiotic divisions and is not actually one of the phases of meiosis. 1.1.6, first of all, learners should obtain experience in reading instructions carefully, as well as interpreting information that is given in tables. Which of the following correctly represents the events involved in the secretion and action of ADH, the antidiuretic hormone? Learners should know their work well. Then they should know that ADH is secreted by the hypophysis and then moves to the kidneys, where it fulfills its function. The target organ, of course, the renal tubules. Now let us look at the answers given. Learners can be helped or assisted by telling them they should know if ADH is secreted, what is the imbalance in the body, and then they should know that ADH has to do with water secretion and water reabsorption. Then when they look at the headings, water level in blood relative to normal. The second column, amount of ADH produced relative to normal. And then the amount of water reabsorbed by the kidneys. So the second and the third columns are the important ones to get you started. When you look at the choices and you look at the links that tells you, if you look at A, if ADH secretion increase, then reabsorption decrease, which is incorrect. If it decrease, it increase, the reabsorption. But when you look at this one, C, when the amount of ADH secretion increases, then the amount of reabsorption in the renal tubules also increases. The last one also not correct in the second and third column. So now we must only make sure that the first column is also satisfying our statement, our argument. And when you look at water level in blood, because of the reabsorption, because of the increasing reabsorption of water from the blood to the renal tubules, it means that water concentration in the blood should then automatically be decreased. So number C is our correct answer. Learners should master the ability to interpret these tables and have solid arguments in this distinguishing the answer or determining the answer. 1.1.7, Again, there's a lot of information that they should absorb first of all. A worker spent about 10 minutes in a walk-in freezer. In other words, it's cold. The outside environment where he is cold. Below are some of the changes that occurred in his body in response to the drop in external temperature. 1, blood vessels in the skin constrict. 2, the brain reacts. 3, the skin temperature changes. And 4, temperature receptors in the skin detect the changes. Nothing else but the reflex action of the skin and the blood vessels, and of course a reflex arc that is involved in bringing about these changes. The only problem is to arrange them in the correct order. So when we look at them, then number 4, temperature receptors in the skin detect the changes first of all. Of course, we know that this change or stimulus is then changed into a nerve impulse directly sent to the brain, and then the brain reacts to activate the blood vessels, in this case because it's cold, to constrict, where the diameter becomes smaller, and then after that the skin temperature will also change. So the correct order, there's your choices. So even before opening the answers, learners can tell themselves, my answer will be 4, 2, 1, 3. And then when you look at your answers, you find it there at number C, 4, 2, 1, and 3. So the answer of 1.1.7 is also C. At question 1.1.8, there is a diagram of, immediately learners should recognize, this is about the eye, but if they also read the instruction on top, it says the diagrams below show the human eye under different conditions. Then on the left-hand side, there's a diagram 1, and diagram 2 shows a change in the eye. Diagram 3 to diagram 4, the change in the eye, of course, the shape of the lens. So before even looking at the question, learners will identify that this first 2 diagrams, 1 and 2, has to do with pupillary mechanism. In other words, where the pupil changes size. In this case, from a smaller diameter to a larger diameter. And the second set of diagrams, 3 and 4, is about the change in the lens, where the lens changes from a less convex state to a more convex state. Later in the paper, we will also see that they refer to as a thinner lens and a thicker lens. Just be aware that we never refer to the lens as being concave. Yes, artificial lenses, like in glasses that people wear, there we have a different situation, but the normal lens of the eye is either convex or less convex and more but never concave. Let us look at the question in this case. Which 2 diagrams above show the result when the ciliary muscles contract and the circular muscles of the iris relax? To break down the question again, when it is about ciliary muscles, we should know that it is about these 2 diagrams. So the first part of my answer should be either 3 or 4. Immediately you can see there's only 2 questions, rather 2 answers that produce 3 and 4 first of all. And the second one, circular muscles. Circular muscles are the muscles that are arranged in a circular way around the pupil. So that question has to do with diagram 1 and 2. That's the second part of the question. So the second part of the numbers should be referring to diagram 1 or 2. Again, it could be either then B or D. So when you look at it, when they say, let's take the first part, circular muscles contract. Ciliary muscles. ciliary muscles, which is part, of course, of the ciliary body, which can be found there, that part of the eye, the ciliary body and the ciliary muscle as part of that. When that contracts, it means that the lens will become less convex from there to there. And then the second part, and the circular muscles relaxes. If the circular muscles, of course, relaxes, then the iris will also then become. So, in which of these diagrams are this statement applicable? So for a ciliary muscle to be contracted, it leads us to a more convex lens. Therefore, number 4 is your correct diagram. And together with that, diagram 2 goes along with that, where the circular muscles of the iris is also relaxed, which means the diameter of the pupil will enlarge. So the correct answer, 1.1.8, is D. 1.1.9, the second last multiple choice question. A learner conducted an investigation to determine the percentage of people that are long-sighted. The factor that is least likely to affect such an investigation, and learners must really take care of the fact that many of these questions, least likely, or the questions say which of the next options are not correct, meaning that they should look at the negative side of the question. So least affect this investigation. It's about long-sightedness. It's about the position that light falls on the inside of the eye, the retina. A says light intensity of the room in which the test was conducted. Probably that could play a role. The height of the person, the height of the people. Immediately you realize that number B seems not to be likely to play a role in this investigation. The age of people, an older eye against a younger eye can also make a difference in your investigation. And the distance between the tool used to test the sight and the person being tested. For sure, the distance will affect this investigation. So the factor that is least likely to affect this investigation will then be number C. No, this is incorrect. Number B. The height of the person will not play a role in this investigation about long-sightedness. The last multiple choice question. The data below, and before I carry on, it is important that learners spend enough time on this part of section A, because it is 10 questions, but each one of them counts 2 marks. So there's 20 marks that learners can obtain in this part of the paper. So they can't rush through this part of the question paper. They must pay proper attention to each question. The data below represents the results of an investigation used to determine how the thickness of the lens changed as a pencil was moved away from the eye. Immediately we recognize this as the process of accommodation. This is all about accommodation. And it's about the distance from the eye and the thickness of the lens, as we referred to it earlier in an earlier question. So what happens in this investigation? The further this object is moved from the eye, the thickness of the lens, or the convexness of the lens, is becoming smaller. And that is nothing else but accommodation of the eye. Now let us look at the question asked. The general conclusion that can be made from this data is that as the distance from the eye increased up to 100 centimeters, in other words, you have to look now at your left column. If it increases up to 100 centimeters, then the answer says the thickness of the lens increased. which is incorrect because you can clearly see the thickness is decreasing. B, so you can eliminate A. B, as the distance from the eye decreased, in other words, this way, decreased, the thickness of the lens remained constant. It means all these figures should be the same. Incorrect. C, as the distance from the eye increased up to 100 centimeter, in other words there, increased up to 100 centimeter, the thickness of the lens decreased, after which it remained constant. Decreased, after it remains constant, which is true. So that seems to be our answer at this stage. Let's just check the last one. Learners must also be careful. Sometimes at number D, the examiner asks, no one of the above is correct, or all of the above is correct. So don't stop at A or B or C. Go right through until the last option. The thickness of the lens increased with an increase in distance, and that is also not true, because in a increasement in distance, there's a decreasement, so definitely incorrect. So 1.1.10 is then definitely C. Before we go to the next question, let us just look then at the letters as to confirm the correct letters for question 1.1. All of them value 2 marks. In other words, 20 marks can be obtained in this part of the paper. Next part of the paper is the biological terms, biological terminology. Our learners sometimes struggling with this section of the paper, so they must make sure they really understand and know their terms. They know their definitions, either the term from the definition or if the term is given, to be able to provide the definition. First one, structure in the ear that equalizes the pressure on either side of the eardrum. We know that to be the Eustachian tube. Of course, it's Eustachian tube. I will show the answers in a minute so that we can also look at the spelling. 1.2.2, measurement of the total amount of carbon dioxide emissions of an individual, a defined population or a company per year. It is part of our work on the human impact on the environment, and it is of course known as the carbon footprint. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the question part, and we're going to open the answers as we carry on. Carbon footprint for that one. 1.2.3, the type of pollution caused when water is released into a river after being heated in power stations or industries. We know that as to be thermal pollution. When it's about the temperature polluting water, then it's about thermal pollution. The watery fluid that supports the cornea and the front chamber of the eye. There's 2 types of liquid in the eye, in the front chamber and in the back. In this case, it is the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor. 1.2.5, the hormone produced by the graphene follicle. Hormone produced by the graphene follicle. Estrogen. The answer there. Each of these answers, of course, worth 1 mark. 1.2.6, the hormone responsible for the formation of the corpus luteum is, of course, LH. Learners can only give the abbreviation LH, which will be credited fully, or they can write it out, the luteinizing hormone. 1.2.7, the receptors in the eye that detect changes in the direction and speed of any movement of the body is the cristae. Receptors here are the cristae. 1.2.8, a hormone which stimulates the secretion of thyroxine. Thyroxine, of course, being secreted by the thyroid gland. So the hormone stimulating this gland comes from the hypophysis, the pituitary gland, and it is known as TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Again, either the abbreviation or the word written out will be accepted as correct. 1.2.9, the type of fertilization associated with viviparous reproduction. Type of fertilization associated with viviparous reproduction. Internal fertilization, because these animals are born alive, which means there should be internal fertilization for this embryo to develop inside the mother's body during the period of gestation before it is born alive. 1.2.10, the series of changes that take place in the shape of the lens and the eyeball in response to the distance of an object from the eye. We have seen it in 2 questions above. The answer, of course, the correct answer, accommodation. Accommodation. My spelling on the previous page of accommodation now, can you see it has 2 M's also, accommodation. 1.3.1, I think I must project the question first of all. Learners must be very careful when it comes to the answering of this part of the question paper, because they can become very easily confused by the A and the B. And of course, what should be done in this case is it can be either A, either B, A and B, or none of them. That is what the instruction is saying. 1.3.1 may cause a decrease in the pH of the blood. Decrease in pH of the blood. A, excess glucose. B, excess carbon dioxide. Glucose has not to do with the pH of the blood, so the correct answer in this case should be B. 1.3.2, the part of the brain that connects the 2 hemispheres, A, the cerebellum, or B, the corpus callosum. Cerebellum has a function on its own. It is not connecting to hemispheres, and it's definitely the second one. So the answer there also B. 1.3.3, a brain disorder that results in memory loss. Alzheimer's disease or multiple sclerosis. Again, refer your learners to the examination guidelines where it comes to disorders of the nervous system, and then there's 2 diseases that learners should pay attention to, and it is both of these that are given in the answer, Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis. Make sure that learners know that as part of the work for the tests and examinations. The answer, of course, should be A. Brain disorder that results in memory loss is Alzheimer's disease. 1.3.4, a structure in the nervous system that detects a stimulus. Detects a stimulus. Is it known as an effector or a receptor? And of course the answer is receptor, because effector is either the muscles or the glands where the reaction is being completed. 1.3.5, a hormone secreted by the pituitary gland or the hypophysis. Is it testosterone or is it thyroxine? And if you say to yourself, there's no correct answer here, don't hesitate, then the answer is none, because that was one of the options given. So none of these 2 hormones, testosterone of course produced by the testes of males, and thyroxine produced by the thyroid gland. So none of them are correct. correct. A type of development in birds in which the young are capable of moving around soon after hatching. It's either one of these two. Is it precocial or altricial development? And of course, in this case, it is precocial, capable of moving around. The second one, altricial, very poor when they are hatched and not able to go around and to be active immediately. It takes a while. So 1.3.6, A only. So just to confirm the answers of 1.3, B only again for the second one, A only for the third one, B only, none of them correct, and the last one, A only. Question 1.4, a diagram which shows an occurrence in a human male. Make sure to read the instruction, make sure to read the information given on top of the diagram, because it will definitely help you or guide you answering the questions. There's a diagram, so you can see it's all about meiosis. It's about the first meiotic division up to there, and then the second meiotic division up to there. The questions, 1.1.4. Name the process by which male gametes in humans are formed through meiosis. Learners can answer that question even without looking at the diagram. Of course, it is called spermatogenesis. Second question, name the organ in males where the process mentioned in question 1.4.1 takes place. The organ in males. A good ploy also here is to tell your learners to encircle or underline the key words. Organ in males, where this process takes place, and the answer there, of course, the testes. 1.4.3, how many chromosomes will be found in each cell at A or at B? After meiosis, after the first meiotic division, as in this case, 46 chromosomes in each cell. It means after the first division, there's already chromosome reduction to 23, and then the second meiotic division is nothing else but a simple mitosis. In other words, the chromosome number in the final set of cells will also be 23. So if learners have done that completion there, it's easy to answer the question, how many chromosomes at A, in other words 23 at A, but at B then also 23. Answers 23 in both questions. Name two processes occurring during the first meiotic division that contribute to the genetic variation of cells A. Genetic variation from there to there, or of course also from there to there. And the two processes that we are looking for in meiosis 1 is crossing over, first of all, and the second process is random assortment of chromosomes. Random assortment of chromosomes. I will show the answers in a second so that you can familiarize yourself with that. How many cells at B will carry the Y chromosome? How many cells at B in these cells will carry the Y chromosome? If we go further, and remember, as part of this 46, it's 44 autosomes, chromosomes, plus 2 sex chromosomes. In other words, it's 44 plus X and Y chromosomes. So after the first division, it's then 22 actually, plus an X chromosome in this cell and a Y chromosome in that. So that one undergoes mitosis, so this two will also have the X chromosome, and those two will have the Y chromosome. So that can guide the learners to their answer. How many cells at B will carry the Y chromosome? Of course, the answer then will be 2. 2 cells carrying the Y chromosome. just make sure this is now, it looks incorrect. It's not 46 plus xy, it's 44 plus xy, which gives us the total, of course, of 46, which was part of the previous question. 1.4.6, the last question in section A. What are the mature cells at B called? Because it is a male, because it is spermatogenesis in males, these cells, they develop the tails afterwards, so they will become, of course, sperm cells or spermatozoa, or if the learners answered male gametes, it will also be credited correctly. Let me just show these final answers for the spelling of some of these terms. 1.4.1 spermatogenesis, testes, remember with an I, it is the singular form, and with an E, it is the plural form. 1 testes, 2 testes. 23, and then 1.4.4 crossing over and random assortment, and 1.4.5, 2, and the last one sperm cells, spermatozoa, or male gametes. Looking at question 2, section B, of course, a diagram of the male reproductive system. All these diagrams are accompanied by a heading or a caption, so learners also should know when they must make a drawing, the diagram must be accompanied by a heading or a caption. Give the labels for each of the following. I'm going to alter the question and the memorandum so that we can also look at the spelling of these words. They ask label A, label B, and label C. Label A, of course, refers to the epididymis. Label B to the testes. And label C to the vas deferens, or the sperm duct, as it is also known. So there are the words, epididymis, testes, and vas deferens, each one counting 1 mark. State one function of part A, the epididymis. It stores sperm cells. I think the easiest way for me is to work from the memorandum and just to read the questions to the viewers, because hopefully you all are also in possession of this question paper. 2.1.2, state one function of part A. It's the function of the epididymis. It stores sperm cells before it is being moved through to the vas deferens. 2.1.3, explain the consequences for reproduction if part C is surgically cut. Part C, the vas deferens, if that is surgically cut, sperm cells will not pass to the urethra. Remember the mark allocation in this case. The mark is not for the word urethra. The mark is for the concept sperm cells will not pass to the urethra. Secondly, a second mark, to fertilize the egg or the ovum, and hence you will not be able to have children. This person will be sterile without having the ability to produce offspring. So the emphasis on that concept, no fertilized egg, and then no children being produced. This process of surgically cut is of course called a vasectomy. 2.1.4, explain why it would still be possible for an HIV positive man to infect another person during sexual intercourse after part C is surgically cut. People say no, if I had a vasectomy and if I am HIV positive, there's no chance for me for transferring this virus to another person. That is not true. the HI virus may still be passed on. So that is the concept that you mark. Should still be passed on during sexual intercourse through the secretions of the accessory glands. All the secretions coming from the accessory glands, the prostate gland and all the other, the Cowper's glands, all those secretions can still contain this virus because it is body fluid. So it's not only in sperm as such that the HI virus is hiding. 2.2, the question is, and I think I want to show the question because learners can very easily miss this question. Right at the bottom of the page, 2.2, describe how the different parts of the ear and brain, what did I say? Encircle or underline the key words. Describe how the different parts of the ear and brain allow for hearing to occur. And it is 7 marks. So learners must also look at the mark allocation to realize how many must I write, how many answers should I give. Describe how the different parts of the ear and brain, that is the important part, the brain as well. So it's a 7-mark question. So learners start by saying, sound waves are directed by the pinna. Again, the concept. They can't only write pinna, because the questions say describe how different parts allow. So the word pinna on its own, not correct. Sound waves are directed by the pinna through the auditory canal to the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, causing this tympanic membrane to vibrate. The vibrations of the tympanic membrane are transferred to the ossicles, the bony ossicles, in the middle ear. Not a mark for middle ear, which eventually causes the oval window to vibrate. This sets up pressure waves in the perilymph of the inner ear. These pressure waves are then transferred to the endolymph in the cochlea, which stimulates the organ of Corti. Without mentioning any other detail, Corti, organ of Corti, in the cochlea, to convert this stimulus into a nerve impulse. Now comes an important part of this answer, which is then transported along the auditory nerve to the cerebrum of the brain, of course, where the sound is interpreted. Why are these last 3 bold printed and indicated with an asterisk? If you look at the memo, random, it says any 4 plus 3 compulsory marks. So these last 3 are compulsory. Even if learners write all of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there's 10 marks in the top part. They only can obtain 4 for that first part, because these 3 have to be mentioned for that final compulsory 3 marks. So our teachers sometimes misunderstand the criterion when it says compulsory marks. So you look for this 3 for 3 marks, and then for the other 4 you can mark any one of those correct. So that she can't get 7 marks without mentioning these last 3. Just going back to this question, we said that learners should pay attention to the mark allocation when it comes to answering these questions. 7 marks immediately tell them that there is a lot to be mentioned. Look at concepts and not words only. So if learners, for instance, give a schematic representation, like the word pinna and then an arrow and then the word auditory canal with an arrow and then the word tympanic membrane with an arrow. Unfortunately, this does not satisfy the request of the question, the instruction, which says describe how the different parts. It may have to be described. So unfortunately for this, learners can't be credited. And then the second interesting thing I want to mention, organ of Corti is spelled with capitals. As a matter of fact, the word organ can still be in a small letter, but the word Corti is in a capital. And learners sometimes ask, why are some of these words in capitals? Of course, that is the surname of the person that described this organ and did research on it long ago, and the work being written about this work comes from that particular person. So all over in the biology, we have this situation of surnames, and also in the physical sciences, in all the sciences, as a matter of fact, where terminology refers to the person that has described it for the first time or did most of the work on that particular content. We will carry on for about 10 more minutes before we will have a short break in transmission, so that teachers and learners can maybe just get their notes in order again and have a breather before we carry on. So for the next 10 minutes, let's see if we can't complete maybe question 2. Question 2.3, study the diagram of a reflex arc below. Just making sure that everybody understands the difference between a reflex action and a reflex arc. The action, of course, is what happens when you pull your hand away from a hot stove plate or your foot or whatever the organ is. That is the action, but the reflex arc is the pathway of this particular nerve impulse from where it is accepted or received right through and up to the organ where it plays a role and where it activates a muscle or a gland. Remember, effectors can be muscle glands to react to this impulse. Questions? We already answered this question. What is a reflex action? Let's look at the answer. Reflex action is a rapid, automatic response to a stimulus. Rapid, automatic response to a stimulus. Label the following. A, the functional connection at D. The functional connection at D. It is known as a synapse. And what is the name of neuron B? Neuron B, if the stimulus starts there, the stimulus is received there, then the direction of movement is through this neuron. So this should be the sensory neuron. The next one is the interneuron in the spinal cord, part of the spinal cord, and then the motor neuron taking this impulse to the effector, the muscle in this case. So this number B refers to a interneuron, or it is also known as a connector neuron. State the significance of the functional connection at D. In other words, what is the role of a synapse? Let us look at the memorandum. Synapse, the significance, it ensures that the impulse moves in one direction only. One direction only. It prevents continuous stimulation of the neurons. It ensures that the impulse is transmitted from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. And any of these learners can mention for only 1 mark. It's only 1 mark, not 3 marks. Write down in the correct order the letters only of the neurons involved from the time a stimulus is received until a response takes place. Again, keywords. Write down in the correct order letters only of neurons, and this is the key, involved from the time a stimulus is received until a response takes place. The key word is neurons. Otherwise, learners can write 4 or 5 different parts. So they only want the correct order of the neurons. And the neurons, as we've already explained, of course, it starts, the stimulus is received there. So the first neuron receiving the stimulus or the nerve impulse, as a matter of fact, is A. Then secondly, it's B. And the third one is C. So D is not part of this answer because it is not a neuron. So your answer very easily in this case, A, B, C. And learners mustn't think, no, they will never ask them in that order. They will rather ask B, C, A or C, A, B. Don't be misled. A, B, and C. But then if all 3 are there, the learner will get the 2 marks. If only 2 or in the incorrect order, then no marks there. So it's 2 or nothing. 2.3.5, explain the consequences for a reflex action if neuron C is damaged. Very popular question. If neuron C is damaged, now learners must know what the role of neuron C. Neuron C is a motor neuron, transferring the impulse from the interneuron to the effector. In other words, this person will still feel the stimulus, but won't be able to react to it because the motor neuron is damaged. So the answer that is correct is exactly what I said. The person will be able to receive a stimulus, but will not be able to respond to it. Be careful to say will feel, because in this diagram in the paper, yes, you can see it's the skin, and it is apparently or probably the biceps muscle. But sometimes you can't clearly see which organ is the receptor and which one is the receptor. Then you can answer it generally by saying the person will be able to receive a stimulus, but will not be able to respond to it. Then the last question in this section. Draw a labeled diagram to represent the structure of neuron A. It is also a very popular question because learners must be able to draw diagrams themselves. With a pencil, of course, diagram being drawn in pencil. The label lines also in pencil, but the labels, important learners, is in pen, blue or black ink, please. And all diagrams should be accompanied by a heading or a caption. And there you can also then see the mark allocation. Caption, 1 mark, if it's correct. Any 4 labels, 4 marks. Now a very interesting comment is that teachers should let them be guided by the examination guidelines. And the examination guidelines on neurons mention exactly these parts that learners should be able to recognize and give the function of. So any other part given, like Ranvier node or neurolemma for that matter, won't be credited because it is not stipulated by the examination guidelines. So any 4 labels of these given and not any other labels. Dendrite, pointing there, nucleus, cell body, it's this whole structure, is the cell body, cytoplasm, and axon. Last one, myelin sheath. The myelin sheath will also be credited. So 1 mark for the caption, 4 marks for any 4 labels from the exam guideline, 5 marks in total. So if you have your papers with you, we ask that you should, in the meantime, while we have a quick break for a few minutes, in the meantime, read this question, 2.4. Please look at the diagram or the graph given, accompanying question 2.4, what it is all about, blood glucose concentration over time during a 2-hour period. We will have a look at the questions and, of course, the correct answers. Enjoy the break.